Well done. You're listening to 95.5 KLOS, and hopefully you're watching a stream over 955KLOS.com. And we want to thank SignedRock.com for sponsoring this event, because this is really an historic moment, and we're glad to be here with Ray Manzarek and Robbie Krieger. Let me ask you this question. The Doors have always had such a mythical quality to your music. There is that sense of mystery about it. Where does that come from? What do you attribute that to?
I'd say probably taking LSD. All right, it's got to do with opening the doors of perception. The name The Doors comes from the Aldous Huxley book, The Doors of Perception. And earlier, a William Blake line, if the doors of perception were cleansed, man would see things as they are, infinite. So that's, I think, what we all did. We all cleansed the doors of perception, our own individual doors of perception, standing on the beach, Venice, California, watching the sunset into the Pacific Ocean, morning in Japan, twilight in Los Angeles, and we realized the world was a globe. We live on a planet. It's a round planet. And I don't want to freak anybody out, but we're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, and we're going around the sun, and it takes 365 days to go around the sun. And that's
Columbus,
what you realize.
Figure that one out. I said Chris Columbus figured that out about 300 years ago.
Yeah. Well, that's why he came here, was for the peyote. At least that was my what I learned.
So what you're saying is that Christopher Columbus already knew this?
Well, that's what he was hoping. Otherwise he wouldn't have launched the ships.
Okay.
Okay.
That's good. God bless. We're on behalf of all Native Americans. We're sorry about Christopher Columbus, but hey, what are you going to do? You know, we love you guys. You know.
Yeah. We apologize for that.
Hey, Jim Morrison was real into Indians too, by the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And talk about myths. I mean, think of all the mythology of the peyote cults, and that's where Jim had a lot of his ideas from. Was from cool stuff like that.
Why don't you cue up Peace Frog, since we're talking about the Indians, because there's that line in there where he talks about, which is a true story.
Indians scattered on dawn's highway bleeding, ghosts crowd the young child's fragile eggshell mind.
Amen.
That's about Jim. When Jim was about 5, 6 years old, he was driving through the desert with his mother and father, maybe a grandmother and grandfather. They were out in New Mexico, and it was dawn on the desert, and Jim's father said, Jimmy, wake up, you've got to see this, because he wanted him to see the dawn, the rising sun, the light coming onto the desert. Jim wakes up, and what he saw was a truckload of Indian workers. A truck had turned over on the highway, and there were Indians scattered on the highway, bleeding to death. And that's what he saw, and he thought, my father wants me to see this. And Jim tells the story that he believes that the souls of one of those Indians, maybe a couple, maybe a shaman, saw that young child and jumped into his body as that spirit was expiring, and that became Jim Morrison, the shaman.
Amen. You're listening to 95.5 KLOS and Peace Frog.